Welcome to the Real Estate Secrets Podcast for healthcare professionals, hosted by Austin Hare and Nathan Palmer, who together have over 2 decades of real estate knowledge and investing.
Okay, welcome back. Today we are talking about a subject that we have a little bit of experience in, I would say. Just what makes a good broker. And so we're going to talk about, the objective responsibility, being creative, fiduciary responsibility, market, client experience, familiarity with the local markets, having a long-term relationship focus, and also just experience and negotiation experience and stuff like that. So what should people be looking for when it comes to in terms of being objective in looking for a broker for a commercial real estate agent, Nate?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of elements of this. So, maybe on its most basic front is that, there's no kind of set maybe bias to whatever the assignment may be, right? So, whether we're asked to represent a tenant or a landlord, obviously, experience gives you bias inherently or maybe unintentionally, but you want to make sure that you're going into it with open arms or open eyes, and really just kind of a piece of that is a lot of the kind of the creativity or thinking that you need to have as it relates to the assignment that you're looking for, right? Because it's not overly common that ideal is available everywhere you want it to be, right? So you need to be able to kind of think creatively, be perseverant, be patient, and ultimately, I think another component of that is just being, really transparent, kind of with everything as you go about it through the process.
Right. Yeah, because I think a lot of brokers, not all, but a lot, you give them an assignment. You say, hey, go look for a certain amount of square footage here, and then they will simply just go on LoopNet or CoStar, do a quick search, and then just give you back a yes or no answer. Like, oh, yep, they got 2 or 3 things. Or if they don't say anything, it's just, hey, sorry, there's nothing that fits your criteria, right? And so when you say being creative, it's like, okay, how can we make this work?
Yeah, well, I think it's okay. Another piece of creative is, okay, you told me you wanted 3,000 square feet of retail-oriented space, end cap or freestanding, and then we may say, okay, let's look for anything 200 to 4,500 square feet, retail, maybe land, just kind of being able to kind of open those parameters a little bit, so that you can capture enough information where if you do find something that is middle of the fairway, exactly what we're looking for, that's great. But if there's nothing perfect that's available, then at least, hey, here's 2 or 3 or 4 options that aren't perfect but have different attributes that we like, and then help just navigate kind of what those pros and cons are.
Okay. And so the second point is just talking about fiduciary responsibilities, because brokers do have a fiduciary responsibility to the client, and whether it's the tenant or the landlord, to make sure that they're representing kind of both fairly, right? But a lot of times, you don't see that happening. So what can you look out for? Like, what should you be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think you have a balance here between kind of your sophisticated and non-sophisticated operators, and sophisticated doesn't mean good or bad. It just means people who do a lot of commercial real estate activity, leasing and sales, and people who do not, right? So a common thought with people who do not do a lot of it is, oh, a broker makes things more expensive, right? So maybe I try to do something on my own and I end up contacting the landlord directly. I'm dealing with his broker, and so I am kind of dealing with the broker, but his responsibility and his fiduciary role is to the landlord, not to me as the potential tenant, right? So, at the end of the day, while he still serves his client to find a way to get a deal done, when the tenant is pushing for its best terms or agenda, he's inherently not going to be that concerned about that. Just trying to get the best deal he can for his client. You know, another element of fiduciary that I think is interesting is you know, really trying to understand any bias that any broker may have to a local market. So it's not really the way we practice, but most brokers only work in one geographical territory, right? So even though you may hire an agent to help you locate your new coffee shop or doctor's office, whatever it may be, if you are a infrequent event for that broker, even as he's dealing with shopping centers and some of these landlords that he deals with on a regular basis, he may be not as objective representing you because he ultimately wants to keep a good rapport with a big shopping center or REIT who owns a lot of shopping centers who he may do a lot of projects with, right? So I think just understanding those items are really helpful.
Right, yeah. So a lot of times people, when they're looking for a new site, will simply find this site, look at the listing agent, and then use them as their broker. But they have more ties to the landlords, and they have more ties to the people whose buildings they're representing. And so you might not even realize it as a tenant, you know, that your broker may not have your best interest at heart, because they're trying to, when push comes to shove and they're going to be negotiating terms, they're going to err on the side of the landlord. And so the point is, like, find a broker that really that's really representing you, right? Your broker that's going to be with you as you go to different locations and you expand your business or whatever, more so than just finding them from the listing agent of that building, right? It's like going that extra mile or taking that little bit of extra time just to make sure that you've got you're covering yourself, right? Like you're covering your own butt. And then with, you know, how important is it to have market familiarity?
Super important, right? So you definitely want an agent who, you know, understands, you know, when I think about market familiarity or kind of trader familiarity, I think about two things. I think about an agent or a broker who understands my needs as a tenant, right? And an agent or a broker who understands just some of the makeup and the changes and just the evolution of the different trade areas in any submarket, right? So it's very common, you'll see brokers representing sites that would say, hey, look at our 3 or 5 mile demographics, so many people, this income level, and it's like, cool, that's great, but, you know, does that trade area really benefit from that whole radius? You know, I've told a story before where we went and did an evaluation on a site post-opening, and prior to getting there, you know, they'd sent us all the information. Hey, the 3 and 5 mile demographics are this, and yada, 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 and we've got this store next to us and this store nearby. And when we got there, you know, we were just a quarter of a mile basically on the wrong side of the highway. You know, so even though the 3 and 5 mile demographics look good, you know, the population that we really wanted was on the other side of the highway, and they just frankly weren't willing to come over to this side, and the population on this side of the highway was not who, you know, our client's business really catered to. So I think, you know, having some market familiarity and I, you know, an important part of our process for most of our clients is doing the site visits and coming into the market and really evaluating things from a number of levels. So like from a consumer level, what does traffic and these patterns look like? Because I'm coming into town not having a ton of familiarity with that, right? So I don't have any bias, and it's very easy for me to say, okay, well, I was driving this way, and it was, even though it was easy to see that guy, it was really difficult to access it, right? So those are important characteristics to know. But also, you know, I think an important part of, you know, our process really drills down to, okay, we're not going to Dallas, and I don't need to be an expert in all of DFW and the million commercial parcels that exist there. You know, we do a really good job of saying, okay, based on competition, different demographic elements, different synergistic and other anchor users, these are the only 7-10 areas in Dallas we're even interested in, right? So we don't need to know all of Dallas. I just need to know 7 or 8 trade areas as good as anybody, right? So we go there, we spend some time, and we're able to see, you know, as, you know, all the time. We talked about this before when we talked about trade areas. You know, you see something that's good on paper, but then you drive there and you start to see a lot of vacancy. You can see it's trending the wrong way. So even though today it looks good on paper, in person, it's trending the wrong way. Inversely, you might go to an area that's like, on paper it was so-so, but it's trending the opposite way, right? So we want to be very cognizant of the fact that, you know, you have to be familiar with the market and really kind of evaluate that for your clients.
Yeah, because people, I think, you know, clients looking to work with brokers will think that they have to have a local guy. They have to have local boots on the ground because they're going to know that area really well, you know, and they're going to be the expert in all these things, which can be true, absolutely. But I mean, you were telling me earlier, sometimes the local brokers won't even physically go drive the areas, you know, like they're doing a search on CoStar, which anybody can do from anywhere, right? And so to really, you physically have to go out there. You have to be not lazy, right? You have to go drive those locations. But even being said, it doesn't take a lifetime to get an understanding of what a building is like. With the way you travel, that we travel to go look at these sites, I mean, once you've identified those core areas, like those 3-5 mile different trade areas, you can go out there, fly out there, and really get a feel. Combine that with the analytical research that we're doing, and then go physically drive it. I mean, you can really get a good feel for that local market and what it is exactly that you're looking for. And so that's what we mean when we say, you know, look for someone who has market familiarity or the ability to quickly get market familiarity. And also, I think another important part is client familiarity, you know, because sometimes people will say, brokers will say, oh yeah, like I can represent you. You know, I've done like this or this, or that might be in a different industry. Or I think the most famous one and the most popular one is like, oh yeah, I got a cousin. He's a commercial real estate agent. And so, you know, I'm just going to use him and help him, you know, his career, get the commission because I know him and I like him, etc. But obviously that can backfire a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point. That's a great point.
So it's like, you know, if you are in the medical space, right, and you're in urgent care and you want to go find a new location, you don't want to use a broker who has been doing warehouses, right? Technically, they're still a commercial real estate agent. You know, Phil fits the category. They're a commercial real estate broker or whatever you're going to call it, but they don't have any experience in this industry. And so that's why it's important to have someone who has legitimate experience in the industry that you're in. Like, so for, you know, here at Leaders, I mean, it's been 12 years now that you've been working with medical and retail. I mean, we have a lot of emphasis on retail. And so I just think it's kind of silly. Sometimes you can literally put your business at jeopardy because you want to make sure that your cousin or your family member or this person that that a friend of a friend uses gets their commission.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's always a tricky balance between kind of trust with all of that, right? Because invariably, your buddy, your cousin, your uncle who's an agent, you trust, and certainly they would not do anything intentionally to harm you, but unintentionally, you know, the consequence of someone who doesn't really know what they're doing can be significant, right? Not that it won't be a better outcome than you do it on your own, but certainly, you know, we're not going for better, we're going for best.
Yeah, so vet your brokers.
Yeah,
that's the main takeaway. All right, and then, you know, in terms of being long-term relationship focused, sometimes we see people that are out there just for the quickest, highest commission, right? So how can you tell, what can you look for to make sure that the broker is long-term relationship focused?
Yeah, I mean, so I think this is a really good topic you brought up because we have, you know, kind of have the notion or the relation to like the greasy haired car salesman, right? We're just in it for the commission. We're in and out and we're gone and you're stuck with whatever we got you to do. And so, you know, obviously, you know, we work in an industry where we're oppositely incentivized, right? So the more you pay to buy a building, the more commission I make, right? Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, right? So, you know, but when you're evaluating brokers or who you want to use, you want to make sure that they're long-term focused. And I think what we mean by that is, you know, they're not trying to squeeze every penny out of every deal, right? They want you to have the best deal because my focus is, hey, I want to do your next 10 projects. I don't just want to push you to the limit on one and get paid one deal, and then it doesn't work out, right? And then, you know, I would say, you know, another good sign of that is, is their willingness to maybe walk away, right? It kind of is the opposite of the balance on the creativity side, right? If we have a site we really like and we're trying to be creative with how we can put a deal together, that's one piece of it, right? But the other side of it is just being so objective that, hey, look, if this doesn't work for you, then that's okay, right? I mean, we have to be comfortable with the fact that the market is what it is, real estate is what it is. I don't just drive down the street and magically buildings appear or become vacant, right? The conditions are what they are, but if we can, use our best judgment and discernment to identify the best opportunities, move forward on those, be creative in how we get through the obstacles and getting a deal put together, then sometimes it's down to, look, I mean, if this isn't a good deal for you, then let's pass. There are always going to be more deals, and let's try to figure it out. So I'd look for different signs like that in a broker to really make sure that he does have your long-term interest in mind, and that his goals really aligned with yours, right? So yeah, I think that's a great.
That's good.
Great point.
Okay, and then last point we want to talk about, and what makes a good broker is just their negotiation abilities and the experience that they have.
Yeah,
right?
So I think this is really good. I think I represent the younger version of what's out there from commercial real estate brokers, right? And so I think a lot of times we're maybe looked on as like, oh, hey, you don't have the experience that somebody who's 60 years old, who's been in the business 30 years has. And so you just want to make sure, based on the type of business you're in, the type of deal you're doing, that you have enough relevant experience, or that your broker has enough relevant experience that you're comfortable with, right? I got into this one time a year ago with a guy I was working on a project on, and I've been in the business 12 or 13 years. He's been in the business 35, 36 years, and so there was always this elephant in the room when it came to seniority. Even though I had brought the project and it was our client, and one time it came up, and I looked at him and said to him, look, I appreciate your experience. I brought you into this project because he had a little different experience than I had, but the simple reality is, because of the types of projects we work on and the types of projects he worked on, even though my time in the business was only maybe a third of his, our average annual production was 5 or 6 times his, right? So if you look at the total quantitative amount of experience we have negotiated equal or more deals, right? So I think you just want to be comfortable with who you're talking to. Make sure that you trust that they've got the experience to navigate the situation, similar to what you talked about before, that they have enough experience in the specific type of real estate transaction we're talking about, to make sure that ultimately your client has the best outcome. And a couple good examples of that is, we do a lot in the retail medical space, as you mentioned, and sometimes it happens that our clients will buy or take down a building, lease it, and then want to sell it, right? And as cool as it is to think, oh man, the investment sales or the big commissions, I'm not the best guy to go list and market that, right? So we always offer to help our clients do that, but we always then bring in one of our national investment sale brokers, because we want to make sure that objectively our client is getting the best outcome, not because Nate wants to make the best commission, so I'm gonna make it so I'm the only one selling it, so you're not going to get as good of a price, but I'm going to get the whole commission, right? That's not, we don't believe that's right. So you want to make sure that, that whoever's helping you in whatever aspect they're helping you is really experienced appropriately to handle that.
Yeah, and it really ties in a lot to what we were talking about earlier, with just having, that client familiarity. But yeah, do take extra time to research who you're working with, see how many deals they've done. Don't be scared to ask them how many deals they've done, and at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you and protect your business more so than helping out a friend, unfortunately. There's nothing wrong with that. But
and I would just say, because once you kind of get over that hurdle, then you know that you and your team are on the same page, right? There doesn't have to be this constant elephant in the room of, okay, do I trust what my broker's telling me? Am I sure I should do this? Should I get a second opinion? You just want to bypass all of that, because it's simply not productive. and you need to get back to doing the things that make you money.
Yeah. Well, okay. Hopefully all this information was really helpful for you guys, and you can go out and crush it. So we'll talk to you soon.